Hello, people. Fearless leader here. Cold in my house. Matt Gamelin is here. Life can start. Sean Reeser. Isha Gupta. Gary Murphy. Addie Strong. We're all Addison Strong. Okay, I'm just waiting to see if anyone else is going to be here. Isha says hello. Hello, Isha. Okay, why don't we go ahead and get started, despite the fact that we're still just a little more than half the people showed up today. So I haven't gotten to grade your exams yet. I hope to get to them soon. Crazy week last week. Now I'm busy as hell. But hopefully I'll get to them this week, by the end of the week, maybe weekend if not. But I'll get them back to you as soon as I can. Today, we start our adventure in actually doing drugs. So today is alcohol, our first drug. So why don't we go ahead and get started here? By the way, it's probably going to be a short lecture in that I don't have a lot to talk about. No, I'm just kidding. Typically, I think I told you this before, typically I've got, 2 lectures per chapter, and it works out pretty well in person, but online here, I feel like we get through things a lot faster. So I'm going to split this lecture up between two dates, today and Wednesday. But I don't think we're going to be here an hour and 15 minutes for each one. Okay, I'm just pulling up my notes so I know what I'm talking about. Okay, so alcohol. This picture, I forget where I got this. Gin Lane is about 19th century London, where there were a lot of people who drank a lot of alcohol. This is my favorite part of it here. This lady's so drunk she drops her baby, and whatever. Moving on. Okay, alcohol. As you know, hopefully you've all taken organic chemistry. Alcohol, the term alcohol is just another functional group on an organic chemical. Many organic chemicals have alcohol groups. Here, when we say alcohol, we mean only ethanol. Okay, ethanol is the 2-carbon alcohol. And methanol is another one you may be familiar with. So they used to call it wood alcohol. It's kind of like another byproduct of fermentation. Very toxic. Okay, that will make you go blind. Here's isopropanol, which you've probably heard of. That's used as rubbing alcohol, right? Again, toxic. You don't want to drink it. But you rub it on your skin to disinfect things. And ethanol, you have to, it's all state controlled. You have to buy it in a state liquor store in just about every state, I believe. And you can actually buy it in the hardware store too. It's 95% ethanol, but the problem is the other 5% is methanol, so you can't drink that stuff. They call it denatured alcohol. You've added that methanol so you won't be tempted to drink really bad alcohol, forcing you to drink the better stuff, basically. Alcohol is the most widely used, second most widely used drug in the world. Number 1 is caffeine. Most destructive drug worldwide in terms of alcoholism and loss of work and all the negative things that go along with drinking too much alcohol. General effects: sedative, which means it calms you down, and hypnotic, it will put you to sleep at high enough dose. And alcohol, if you haven't tried it yet, will relax you, reduce your inhibitions, make you mildly euphoric, and give you a slight stimulation. Usually at first you get stimulation, and then after a while it's more depression. Reduces motor coordination, cerebellum, increases urination. We'll talk about that, and sedation, nausea, and the favorite thing, death. That's why everybody drinks alcohol, for that last possible thing. Alcohol, you probably know this, comes in many different forms. You've got wine, which is about 12% alcohol usually. One drink, and we'll talk about one drink is one dose of alcohol, so it's always kind of metered out that way at bars and restaurants and things. And so one drink is the dose we're talking about. One dose of wine is 5 ounces. One dose of beer is 12 ounces, and that's if we were talking about 5% beer. Some of your light beers are like 3%. Some of your stronger beers, your IPAs and things, are closer to 8. And that's why you have to be careful when you say one beer is one dose, because that's for a usual beer. But if these IPAs come in 16-ounce cans and they're 8% alcohol, one beer is closer to 2 beers at that point. So dose, one can is really 2 doses of beer. Hard liquor, then your whiskeys, your vodkas, your gins, is like 40% alcohol. And there's kind of this gray area in between wine and hard liquor, which is like port, schnapps, cordials, things like that, which are usually really sweet after dinner drinks. They're about like 20 to 30% alcohol. So I put 25 here. So one dose of that is 2.5 ounces. And typically you've got smaller glasses that you drink it in, just to make it nice for you. Proof, you've probably heard of proof before. Typically, we don't talk about hard liquor being 40%. We always call it 40 proof or 80 proof. So proof is double the percentage. And the reason for that, I wrote in the book, it has to do with the British Navy back in the 19th century. The sailors were allowed one glass of grog every day. Grog was rum with lemon mixed into it. And the idea was they're getting their vitamin C through their grog. And some captains would water it down because they want to keep the sailors a little more sober. But the sailors could always tell, because if you took their grog and you put it on gunpowder and lit it, if it didn't light, then it was watered down. If it did light, then it was proof. It was 100 proof. So 50% alcohol will still light with gunpowder, but if you dilute it more than that, it won't. So that's where the term proof came from. They're just proving that their grog isn't watered down. Okay, so that's that. Metabolism. We're not getting to metabolism yet. First, absorption. So almost always alcohol is going to be taken orally. Right. I mean, I've heard tell years ago of people soaking tampons in vodka and then shoving them up one hole or another and absorbing it that way. And it does get in that way. You could also, if you've got something strong like wine, just hold it in your mouth and it will absorb through the mucous membranes and hit you a lot faster. But typically, both those things are pretty stupid. So typically people are drinking it, and it's a cultural thing. It tastes good. It's part of sitting around talking and enjoying yourself. So that's typically how it's taken, is orally. Absorb time to peak concentration. Getting back to chapter 1, any oral absorption is strongly affected by how much food is in your stomach. So if you've got an empty stomach, that alcohol can hit you in probably 15 minutes. And if you've got a really full stomach, it could take 90 minutes to hit peak. And another thing we talked about then was how the longer it takes to peak, the lower the peak will be. So if you take one shot on an empty stomach, you will feel it. It will really hit you. But if you take one shot of hard liquor on a full stomach, you may not feel it much at all because it's coming into your body slowly and is being metabolized as it's being brought in. So the peak is a lot lower. But here in the notes, I say between 30 and 60 minutes, depending on how much is in your stomach. In terms of distribution, this pretty much goes everywhere. It prefers water compartments. Okay, it's kind of polar. You can tell that because you can mix it with water and it doesn't separate, right? It's miscible in water, so it's more water soluble than non-polar soluble. But it's small, so it can go through membranes really easily. So whatever you drink goes to every compartment of your body. And that's important too when it comes to pregnant women should not be drinking alcohol. One drink is probably not a big deal, but you don't want to be getting drunk when you're expecting, because we'll talk later about how that messes up the fetus. Okay, metabolism. Again, getting to our organic chemistry, because I know that you all love organic chemistry. Here's our ethanol. And the enzyme that breaks it down to get rid of its effect is ADH, alcohol dehydrogenase. So ADH will oxidize ethanol into acetaldehyde. Now, acetaldehyde is pretty toxic. Aldehydes in general are nasty things in your body. So acetaldehyde can make you really, really sick, but you've got Mr. aldehyde dehydrogenase right next to it, and that will break it down to the acid, acetic acid, and that's common. It's in your body everywhere. If you remember when you take biochemistry, you'll see acetyldenyl methionine. No, what was it? SAM. I can't remember now, but there's a certain cofactor. Oh, acetyl-CoA. Watch me go. Acetyl-CoA is like a big what do you call it? A group used to move other groups around, a cofactor that will bind to acetic acid, and then the cells use that to add 2 carbon chains to things. So acetic acid is really common in your body, so that's not toxic. So here's our big toxic monster here, and if you drink a lot of alcohol, you'll end up having a lot of acetaldehyde, and that can help you get a really nice hangover. As well as the methanol will give you a hangover too. So, I should have said that earlier when we were talking about different types of alcohol. So they say you can pay for your drinks tonight, or you can pay for them tomorrow. If you get really cheap alcohol, the well drinks, what they do is, you separate it by distillation. So ethanol boils off at about 60, methanol at about 40 C. So for the cheap alcohols, they'll take everything from 50 to 70. So you're getting a significant amount of methanol in there. And so cheap alcohol can give you a bad hangover. But the good alcohols, they'll take a more narrow band, and they'll take that out, and then they'll redistill it, get even more narrow, and then triple distill it, and then you've got only ethanol. And you get a lot less hangover from that. So pay me now or pay me later. Okay, so in getting back to acetaldehyde, so there's this drug, disulfiram. I'm not sure they still use it. They used to use it a lot. It's basically, if you're an alcoholic, you get up in the morning, you take it, and then you can't really drink alcohol the rest of the day, because if you do, it blocks its conversion into acetic acid, and this builds up. So one drink will make you really sick, or 1 or 2 drinks anyway. So it's kind of like a preventative for drinking alcohol. Also with this, Asian people typically more Chinese and some Japanese people tend to have a different version of this ADH that converts ethanol into acetaldehyde a lot faster. So that tends to build up faster. And also some people will get hit with a double whammy where they've got a really efficient this and a really inefficient this. And so you really get a lot of acetaldehyde being built up in the body. And it's called Asian flush syndrome because it causes your face to turn red. And there are non-Asians who have this too, but it's prevalent in Asian communities. I had a friend when I was in grad school who, oh, my phone, I got to shut it off. Hang on a second. Sorry about that. So I had a friend when I was in doing a postdoc in Boston, and she didn't drink at all. And this was why, because she couldn't have this. And she found, freshman year, everybody's going to parties and drinking. And she said, geez, I get really sick whenever I drink. I don't know why people drink. It's terrible. Um, but but then she realized it was just her. So she'd go to parties and not drink, and her friends didn't like her there because she was sober and she wasn't a lot of fun to hang out with. So she would still go to parties, but she'd act really silly at the parties. So everybody else thought she was drunk. She kind of watched everybody else's behavior and start acting silly too, to help her get along. I thought that was kind of a funny story. Sure it is, Tom. Okay. Okay, and in terms of metabolism, 95% of it will be metabolized. 5% will come out either in the urine or in your breath. And of course, that's how they do the breathalyzer, because whatever concentration of alcohol is in your blood, that'll equilibrate with the air in your lungs and come out. So they can tell pretty well what your blood alcohol concentration is by what your breathing alcohol concentration is. But that's the smallest percent. That's 5% is coming out through your lungs and your kidneys. 95% is going to be metabolized in the liver, or be metabolized, and 85% of this in the liver, 15 to 20% in the stomach. And that stomach part is important. We'll talk about that later. So a couple of things about the ADH in your stomach. One is, if you've got a full stomach when you drink alcohol, the alcohol will sit in your stomach longer and you get more first pass effect, right? Because it's getting broken down as it's sitting in your stomach. If your stomach's empty, boom, a lot less first pass goes right into your system. The other thing is, when we talk about women, this will be an important factor in their alcohol drinking. Okay, blood alcohol content. So this is typically how it's done, or what they talk about in terms of how much alcohol is in your body. Blood alcohol content, BAC. So this is a graph, gives you kind of a rough estimation of when you've drunk too much and it's illegal, to drive. And this is for a man. And so let's say 3 drinks and you weigh 160 pounds, you're right on the edge of being able to drink. So this is 3 drinks in an hour. You're right on the edge of being able to drive. So more than 3 drinks in your first hour and you should not be driving. You drink, unless you're a little guy, 100 pounds, then 2 drinks and you're over the limit. And the larger you are, the more you can drink. So that's a really important factor. We call that a volume of distribution. You've got a certain amount of alcohol. How big of a volume are you distributing that in will tell you what your concentration is going to be. So a small guy takes 1 shot of alcohol, it's this. Big guy he's twice as big, takes the same shot of alcohol. So you've got the same amount of alcohol dispersed into a larger volume. The concentration is lower. So volume of distribution is really important. So that's one of the things that affects your blood alcohol concentration per how many drinks you've had. So your size is going to, so this is kind of like a general graph. There's each person's going to be different from this, but it's a kind of a seat of the pants feel for how much alcohol is in your system for how many drinks. But a lot of other things go into your blood alcohol concentration. One is how fast you drink. So if you drink 3 drinks in an hour, you're going to have a lot more in your system than if you drink 3 drinks in 3 hours, right? Because your body's breaking it down as you're drinking it, so you never peak as high. So the speed of drinking makes a big difference. Contents of stomach, which we've talked about already. You've got ADH in your stomach, which will have more time to break down that alcohol. Previous exposure too. We'll talk about this at the end when we get into tolerance. The more frequently you drink, the more ADH you have in your liver and the faster you break it down. And that's why if people are chronically drinking a lot of alcohol, they don't get as drunk as other people, as someone who's not exposed before, because less of it actually gets into your blood. Your liver breaks it down on the first pass and also breaks it down faster while it's just sitting in your blood. Okay, but that's men. Women will get much more alcohol in their system, much higher BAC than men for the same body, for the same number of drinks taken. So this is number of drinks in 2 hours. So a man could drink 5 drinks in 2 hours and still be legally able to drink. And a woman with 3 is getting close. 3.5, you're already into the illegal part. So I just got a chat. Let me check this real quick. Chat, beautiful chat. All right, come on, chat. Come on, chatty. I can't see my chat window. Angelina Pelkey, can you read the thing that just came up on chat? Because I can't find it. Just have to unmute yourself. Angelina?
It says acetyl dehydrogenase.
Uh-huh.
And that's it. All right, and then there's also the question was, what is ADH?
Oh, ADH. So we've got ADH, we've got ALDH. Okay, so ADH is alcohol dehydrogenase. That's the first enzyme. And then ALDH is aldehyde dehydrogenase. So that's breaking down the aldehyde into the acid. We'll see another ADH later just to make things confusing, and that's the antidiuretic hormone, but I'll talk about that later. It's another ADH that we need to know. Okay, so back to this. So women get a lot higher BAC than men for the same amount of alcohol drunk. And here's the blood percentage for women drinking in 1 hour. So really 3 drinks in an hour if you weigh, oh, it doesn't matter what you weigh. You have to weigh over 180 pounds or else 3 drinks in an hour, you're over the edge. You can't drive anymore. So woman about 140, 2 drinks is about your limit before you can't drive anymore. And why is that? We've got 4 different reasons why women have a higher BAC for the same amount of alcohol. One is they're smarter than men. No, I'm just kidding. That doesn't count. True, but doesn't count. No. One, women have 50% less ADH in their stomach. So previously I said like 15 to 20% of the alcohol will get broken down in your stomach. So for women, it'd be 7.5 to 10% of the alcohol gets broken down. The rest of that alcohol gets into the bloodstream. Women are on average smaller, right? That gives them a smaller volume of distribution. Your average male, your age is probably about 160 pounds, the average female about 125. So women tend to be smaller than men and less volume of distribution. Also have a higher volume of distribution because of their body fat percent. Women have a higher body fat percent. And alcohol tends to prefer the water compartment rather than the fat compartment. So if you assume that the fat compartment is excluding the alcohol, that makes that volume of distribution even smaller. So the amount of alcohol in the body gets even higher for that reason. And lastly, and I'm not sure this is true, frankly, but because I've heard this several times, but when I was writing the book, I tried to find some literature that backed it up and I couldn't find anything. But one possible thing as well is that birth control pills can cause a woman to absorb alcohol faster. And the faster you absorb it, the higher your blood alcohol concentration will be. All right, so let's go back to volume of distribution. So this is kind of explaining that thing. So let's say we've got 2 men here. This guy's 200 pounds. This guy's 140 pounds. This guy punches this guy. No, this guy punches this guy in the mouth. He falls over. No, I'm just making that up. Okay, so we've got 1 glass of alcohol here. The big guy takes it. He's got a certain concentration. The little guy takes it, his concentration is even higher, okay, because he's got less volume to distribute in. And now you've got a woman taking the same, okay, so we've got a man and a woman the same weight, but because she's got these fatty deposits, more so than he does, that limits her volume of distribution. So for the same amount of alcohol, her concentration is even higher. And you can see that here with a thin guy versus a person with more body fat, same weight, but because this guy's got fat, which is excluding the alcohol, he's got a higher body concentration than this guy does. Okay, so that's volume of distribution and body content. Rate of metabolism. So you've probably all heard this, at least I hope you have. The rate of metabolism is 1 drink per hour. So this is one of the few drugs that are eliminated, that is eliminated by zero order kinetics. Zero order means the amount removed is the same for every time period. If you remember, first order kinetics is when half of what's in your body comes out for every time period. And that means you shoot down really fast and then kind of asymptotically approach zero. So it lasts a really long time. It's easy to detect weeks later or days later anyway. With zero order kinetics, every drink you take takes another hour to come out. So if you drink three drinks real quick, in a minute or two, just straight back, then it will be 3 hours before that alcohol is out of your system. If you drink 1 drink every hour, you're going to come up to some mellow point and just stay there until you stop drinking and then come down. So that's kind of an important thing to learn at your age if you're going to be drinking. When you first start drinking, have 2 drinks the first hour, maybe 3, get yourself up to a nice mellow thing, and then slow the hell down, okay? At that point, you're just kind of maintaining that pleasant feeling, because if you don't, keep going higher, you're gonna get sick. And no one likes it when their roommate throws up on the floor. Okay, so 1 drink per hour, that's 12 ounces of 5% beer, 4 ounces of wine, 1.5 ounces of spirits. If you're spirited, I'm correcting my notes right now. Okay. So, and the reason for the zero order thing is that alcohol dehydrogenase the enzyme will get saturated. It can only go so fast. So with even 1 drink, it's going to be saturated. So like if you take Valium, right, that's broken down by an enzyme too, but like 2 milligrams of Valium is equal to 20 grams of alcohol. So you take a lot of alcohol compared to other drugs. And that's why other drugs are always first order. And this one is zero order, because you take such a high concentration of it just to feel the effect. And so all the enzymes that break it down get maxed out, and they're moving at a constant rate. And that gives you your zero order kinetics. If you could zoom in on this tiny little spot here at the bottom, you would see it coming straight down and then curve out like a first order reaction towards the end. That's not that important unless you're a biochemist and you enjoy that kind of a thing. So what affects your BAC, your speed of drinking, contents of the stomach, previous exposure? Yes, I've said that already. Okay, time is it? Holy cow, it's 4 o'clock. I don't really want to get into mechanism of action yet, because then we won't have anything to talk about Wednesday. Let's watch this anyway. I'm going to play it. Play it, Sam. Mouse party. What? Oh, that's okay. Ooh, hang on a second. Oh, okay. Allow. Pardon me while I deal with my media. Oops, there it is. Okay.
Dr. Slush, we can't see it now. There it is.
Can you see it now? Okay.
Yeah.
So this is a really cool thing that I found years ago that talks about mechanism of action of drugs. If you want to dance, go ahead and dance. I kind of like the music. Okay, so these are our test mice. That's Mr. LSD. This is cocaine. I call him Tweak. That's methamphetamine. I guess his name is Tweak, isn't it? Methamphetamine. There's alcohol, marijuana, ecstasy, and heroin. Okay, so as we do each drug, we'll pull one of these mice out and see what's going on in their head. Oops, that's Tweak. Drop him. Alcohol. Dropped his bottle. Nice.
Inhibitory neurotransmitters called GABA are active throughout the brain. These neurotransmitters act to control neural activity along many brain pathways. When GABA binds to its receptor, the cell is less likely to fire. Meanwhile, in another area of the brain, another neurotransmitter called glutamate acts as the brain's general-purpose excitatory neurotransmitter. When alcohol enters the brain, it delivers a double sedative punch. First, it interacts with GABA receptors to make them even more inhibitory. Second, it binds to glutamate receptors, preventing the glutamate from exciting the cell. Alcohol particularly affects areas of the brain involved in memory formation, decision-making, and impulse control.
Impulse control. All right, let's eject this guy. I love the way they just throw him back in the thing. Okay. Okay, so that's a mechanism of action. And I really kind of want to wait till Wednesday because we're going to run out of things to talk about here if we go too fast with this. I don't know why it takes me so much longer when I'm in front of people, but I guess I waste a lot of time, I guess. All right, so let's just stop the share. Animal abuse. Someone called it animal abuse. Cartoon animal abuse, anyway. Okay, so that's about all I have for you today. Doesn't seem like much, but make sure you're reading up in the book. And then on Thursday, we'll have the more complicated lecture about mechanism of action and how it produces its effect in the brain. Okay, any questions, comments? Okay, y'all look really good today. Actually, all I see is your names, but look like good people anyway. All right, I'm going to let you go. Talk to you later, people.